Hello, my name's Belinda Colleen, and this is my first video, so please be kind as you watch me struggle through this. I'm starting this YouTube as this channel to discuss reselling hype. I just started selling on eBay 2 years ago, and it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, but I've had to learn a lot of things that what's true, what's not, with all of the videos that are out there. And believe me, one of the reasons I wanted to do this was because I felt like there were some truths bubbling under the surface of a lot of these videos that probably should be discussed. And but believe me, I would not have been able to be successful in YouTube had I not been, or in eBay had I not been watching YouTube videos, because I have learned a great deal from people that really know what they're doing. The only thing I felt was that they weren't saying it all. And of course you learn, and some things you probably need to learn on the job, so to speak. I guess the first thing that is part of the hype that I would like to debunk is the idea that you're going to be an overnight success. Depending on what your objectives are, that is something to consider. If you're looking to replace a full-time income because you got laid off, or you just really love thrifting and you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this now, and I figure once I get 1,000 or 2,000 items listed, I'll be up and running, making 60, 70, 80,000. It's important to remember that when you're working with eBay, and there's my cat, he helps me out all the time, his name is Romeo. When you're working with eBay, of course you are going to be you'll have to come up with your own benefits. So maybe a $60,000 or $70,000 income or salary that you have in corporate America or in some other profession that you're switching from would maybe be equal to that 60 or 70,000 plus maybe another 10 or 15 or 20%, depending on what your benefits are. And with health insurance especially, that can really add a lot. So that's something to think about. And I do believe giving it a trial run is really, really important, because I was real surprised at certain things. I think I'm in pretty good shape. But if you really do the work when you're outsourcing and you look at every item that you can find and you start looking up the numbers to see what the demand is, which is important, especially in the beginning before you start being able to identify things more by sight, it is exhausting. It can be really exhausting, but it's important. And it's not, I started doing it because I had an antique booth, and then I moved, in the area that I moved to did not have really a good antique booth. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get rid of some of that stuff. And I'd heard about people selling on eBay. Of course, everybody's heard about that. And I really enjoy thrifting. And I thought, I'm going to try to get rid of some of that stuff. And my mother had some things she wanted to downsize a little bit, so I sold some of her things. And what shocked me was how much more work it was than I expected. For one, you have to clean the inventory, you have to take pictures of it. If you have to take measurements, you have to store it. You need a storage place, like, okay, I just got in the door, here's some things, I've got to go through them. So you've got one pile over there. The next pile you've got is things that need to go in the washer. The next pile you have are things that need to be scrubbed in the sink. You just end up with a lot of different stacks or piles of things that you need to deal with, and you have to be really organized. I think doing a good self-assessment is always important when you make a big change, and I unfortunately am not a detail-oriented person. So I have had some real challenges doing this. I've had to make lists for myself and just get real picky about how I do everything so that I won't lose my inventory and that it will be in good shape when it's sold and time to go out. But the key that I wanted to drive home, the first point I wanted to make, is that I don't think it's realistic to replace a full-time income, say in less than a year or two. I just passed my 2-year period that I've been on eBay. It's been real up and down. It's been an emotional roller coaster, I will definitely say that. Some weeks I would want to quit because I'd get a return and I'd feel like it wasn't a righteous return. I'm like, there's no way those shoes got banged up in shipping. I was so careful. I put bubble wrap around everything, even shoes, and I'm put them in really sturdy boxes. And I thought, how in the world could this have happened? And so you have days like that, and then you have days where you lose things, and you have days where you go out shopping and you're excited about shopping because that's the most fun for most of us. That's what we really like the best. It's what I like the best. And then you get out there and you can't find anything, and you're just thinking, oh my goodness, I wasted the whole day and I found 2 things. That's not going to help me build my inventory. So you will have those kind of weeks where you do think about quitting. And especially unless you get real organized very fast, it'll take over your life if you're not careful. I do think you need to think about that ahead of time, how you're going to space everything out and where you're going to hide things or tuck things away so that you're not tripping over your inventory and your living space. That was something I had to learn because I don't have a big space here. And that's something else you have to think about is the space that you have. You need workspace, you need a place to photograph, and you need, basically a place you can lay things out and measure them. So you've got to think about those things ahead of time and get prepared. When you're just selling a few things that maybe you've got at home, which I would suggest you do that before you start shopping. Learn with the things that you have at home that you'd like to get rid of, things that you've thought about taking to the Goodwill yourself maybe. Try to do that, and then that way you'll make all your mistakes before you start spending money. You are going to have some type of printer. They have special label printers. I just use a regular printer that I use with my laptop, and that's how I print off the postage for my items. There is a learning curve, and it's longer for some people than others. And that's the other thing. You've got to give yourself 90 days to make mistakes, to do some crazy stuff, and before you really start feeling like you're breaking even. It took me a while. I was churning everything I made right back into the business, and that was fun, but it's real easy to lose track of what your numbers are when you do that. But basically, I would say after about a year, I started feeling more confident. I started recognizing brand names so that I didn't have to look everything up. And a lot of it I learned from these videos that I watch of other people that are seasoned and that, they know all the brands, which ones are good, which ones are bad. And a lot of times it's not just the brand. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to go buy all the Levi's jeans I can find, because not all Levi's sell. Some do, some don't. So it ends up being all about the model too. And you just have to be committed to looking at everything. The devil is truly in the details in this business. One of the biggest mistakes that I made many times, and I ended up taking things right back to the Goodwill and donating them after I purchased them, which of course makes you feel pretty foolish. But the lighting in some of the thrift stores is not great. So you'll hold a shirt up and you'll think, that looks good. I don't see any spots or tears or anything. The stains, oh my goodness. You can't always see the stains in the light in the thrift stores. I can't tell you how many times I came home, and then when I started to take pictures of an item, I would find stains, or I would find something I missed, and it would be so upsetting to me, or there'd be a missing button, or the zipper would not work. So you basically learn on the job. And the thing I learned, and hopefully you're a more careful person than I am naturally, is I check every zipper, I count every button. And the stain thing is a hard one though. I've gotten to where I don't wear glasses all the time, but now I will always carry my glasses with me to the thrift store so that I can have that a little extra added eyesight to the equation, and hopefully keep some of those stained items out of my house and not have to redonate them. But you can't be afraid of that. You just have to go with it. If you're like me, I can't tell navy blue from black. That's another issue I have. So in my postings, when I list something, I'll put navy blue / black. That way I'm sort of covered, because I'm always worried I'm going to make that mistake. And I haven't had anybody lean in on that one before yet, but I always worry about, oh, I can't tell the difference, and that I'll make a mistake and then I'll end up in trouble because of it. So anyway, the boring parts of the business, and this is the part that nobody wants to hear, can get the best of you. But you have to really make it fun. In fact, half the time I would listen to YouTube videos while I was listing my items, taking pictures, all of the prep that you have to do. And every morning I get up and I wrap the things that sold overnight. The funniest thing to me that I learned is people love to shop in the middle of the night. I would have never guessed that, because I don't shop in the middle of the night, but people do. I guess they work hard all day. A lot of them get home and then they play at night and they shop at night. So don't be surprised if you go to bed one night and you think, okay, I've got 2 things sold. I've got them wrapped. I'm ready to go to the post office tomorrow morning. And then you get up and you've got 3 more things to wrap. That's a good problem to have. So I really don't complain about it, but you never know how much is going to sell in the middle of the night. And I was always a little surprised at first, and now I'm just used to it. There is a physical pain element to this job or to this business, and I will say that up front. As a woman over 40 or so, I do find that when I am standing on my feet for a long time in a thrift store, going through and trying to look up information on different items before I purchase them, after a while it gets hard. You know, I get tired, it's tedious. Sometimes the stores are hot, and sometimes they don't feel as clean as you would like. The bathrooms can be terrible. Not all of them, but just some of them. I always have Kleenex on me, because I know that half the time there's no toilet paper in the Goodwill that I go to, most of the time. So it's like I've really gotten prepared. I always have a lot of water on me. I mean, I really get prepared for a shopping day. It's my favorite thing to do, but honestly, it's not as simple as when I used to go thrifting and I was just looking for fun stuff to buy. And of course, I didn't care about demand as long as I liked it. And now, of course, everything's about the demand. You can't, in the beginning, one of the things that you'll have to learn not to do, and it's the hardest thing I had to learn, honestly, besides postage. That was the other hard thing I had to learn. The hardest thing was that I would see something that I thought was adorable. I'd say, oh, that top is so precious. I can just see that on a little 25-year-old. It will be so pretty, and I know they're all going to line up to buy it. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. Some of those kinds of things that I loved sat in my store, and no one lined up to purchase them. So you just can't go by your gut, because unless you're just have unbelievable instincts, which we all think we do, but I don't. I've learned that I don't. Things that I think are hideous fly out of my store sometimes. So it really becomes, very much a metrics situation. You've got to look things up. What's in demand? What isn't? Things change. The trends change all the time. This isn't a sleeper business. You can't just hit the ground running and learn everything real fast and not keep up. You have to keep up with trends, because they change constantly. 2 years ago, I was selling skinny leg jeans. Now I'm selling baggy jeans. And that's just the way that is. And you just have to know, and some age groups will buy certain things and other age groups won't. You can tell probably that I sell mostly clothes. I sell about 10% other things. If I see some nice artwork that's small, or pottery, or things like that, or kitchenware, I will buy that if I think I can get good money for it, and if I'm not scared I'm going to break it. That becomes a big factor for me, is whether or not it's going to break. But like I said, this is not something you can put on the remote control and just say, okay, I got it now, I'm good to go, because things really do change a lot, and you have to kind of keep up with what's going on in the world, what people care about, and that type of thing. And the trends can change very quickly. That's what really has surprised me a lot. I've been in business 2 years now, and things have changed very dramatically, especially in clothes. And then you might want to start picking, like I'm real comfortable picking out clothes for people in my age group, but when it comes to shopping for the 20-somethings who spend a lot of money on clothes, I have to really sort of watch some social media sites and do some different things to learn how people are dressing and what they care about at that age, because that is a demographic I don't want to ignore because they buy so many clothes. I know when I was that age, that was the most important thing. I love to buy clothes, and so I do believe that it makes sense to just keep learning all the time. But there again, selling, it is rigorous, and that was something I don't think I was prepared for, because I'm a lifetime shopper, consumer, like most of us are, and I have always loved doing it, but I never thought of it as work, but it really is when you're doing it this way. And that's something you have to recognize, because it's very physical. I've never had a job where I had to be real physical before, so this has been real interesting. And above all, it's a business. It is not a job. So unfortunately, you pay for all your mistakes right out of your pocket. And believe me, I've learned a lot and done almost every mistake in the book once. I've lost items and then found them after I already told the buyer. I would be so apologetic because I'd tear up my house trying to find it and did not write it down, so I didn't know where it was, but I would go through everything I had to try to find it, because I didn't want to confess that I couldn't find the item. And believe me, eBay doesn't really like that. I mean, if you do it all the time, they'll probably kick you off the site. So you don't want to do that very often. And I've only done it once, so in 2 years, so I don't feel terrible about it. But when it happened, I felt terrible. Not only was I letting the customer down, I was letting myself down. And at that point, when it happened, it was right when I first started, I was worried that eBay would kick me off just for that one mistake. And fortunately, they aren't that strict. But you do have to be mindful of that. Same with returns. Returns are unfortunately an ugly part of the business, but you have to deal with them. I think there are people that swear by, oh, I just don't take returns. Well, you can say that and you can make that your business policy, but believe me, the buyers are smart and they will force it. If they say it's not as described, they can say, well, I didn't see the scuff on those shoes on the pictures, and they had scuffs on those shoes, so I'm going to tell eBay, and then eBay will take this return. So they know how to get around it, and you can say you don't take returns, but eBay's going to force you to take returns on things if they're not as described. So you might as well, in my opinion, the best way to go, and I came out of customer service in a big way. I managed a customer service department. I've been in marketing and sales a long time, and I know how important it is to have consumer, support. They have to believe that you're on their side, and I am on their side. I want to do a good job. I want to treat them the way I want to be treated when I'm a customer. So I have no problem with a 30-day refund policy. Even though there have been a couple of refunds that I thought were suspicious, I still 30 days, no questions asked. They send it back, and I refund their money, and it's just part of doing business. You have to look at it that way. You have to say, well, I'm going to get returns. It doesn't make me happy. Nobody wants returns because they put your money on hold for that amount of money. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but, and of course, if you get too many returns, it's going to hurt your status. I just became a top seller. Well, it's been about 7 or 8 months ago now. I got top seller status, which I think means I get a little more traffic driven to my site, which is good. And I like that, and I'm trying very hard to keep that status, because I think it definitely lends credibility to my site. People know they can, between my return policy and the fact that I'm top status and the fact that I have 100% positive reviews from my customers, means that they they can trust me. And that it is a trust business, especially online, because they can't touch it or feel it or smell it or taste it or anything. They have to go by your descriptions and your photographs. Something that surprised me is that you can sell things that are less than perfect. Certain items, you just have to point out if there's a problem with them, you know. Like I won't sell anything with a stain on it, but if there's a little tear that I didn't see in the store, normally I wouldn't buy anything that had, but if I find it when I get home or if it gets snagged and it's a great brand and people are really looking for it, I will take a picture of that flaw and I'll also say it in the description and even the title sometimes. So I've done my part to say what's going on with this item, and people will still buy it a lot of times, especially certain types of items, like maybe a work jacket or something like that. And of course, we all know about distressed jeans. There are other items that seem to do better almost if they're distressed a little bit. So that has been something interesting to learn. But, you know, demand is another thing. When I first started, I saw this simple formula. They said, compare the number of listings to the number of sales, and then you'll know what the sell-through rate is, which is important. That means what is the demand. And you basically, just like in, you know, fractions or whatever, you divide the number of listings into the number of sales. So let's say you have, just to make it simple, 100 listings in the last 90 days, and then you had 50 sales in the last 90 days for that item. That's a 50% sell-through rate. Now, that's the sell-through rate I try to use, and of course, the higher the sell-through rate, the better, of course, but that's my minimum. When I'm shopping, I don't want to get anything less than that because it'll sit so long, and I'm not interested in becoming a storage business. I want things to move in and out pretty quickly. But there's some tricks to that. I learned this the hard way because I remember thinking I was getting sweaters in the summer, you know, because we were going into the fall, and I thought, oh, I need to pick up some sweaters to get in my, you know, to put in my business some knits for the winter. Well, guess what? When you look at the 90-day sell-through rate on sweaters in August, it's pathetic. It looks like sweaters never sell. Well, that's because they don't sell in the summer much. Common sense, you have to use your common sense. Everything, all these numbers they give you aren't hard, fast rules. You have to use your common sense. And you can pull things up and see what's sold in the last 6 months or the last year to get a better idea about what the real sell-through rate is on seasonal items. Because seasonality is also a big part of this business. You know, you don't want to stock up on summer clothes in August, and you don't want to stock up on winter clothes in April, or they're going to be sitting for a long time. Doesn't mean if occasionally I break my own rule. If I see something really fabulous, like I love to buy linen shirts, I'll buy a linen shirt, a pretty linen shirt with a good brand anytime, because they're harder to find. Or if I see a beautiful cashmere sweater in the summer, you know, or in, you know, May, just starting into the summer season, I'll buy it. I don't care because they're hard to find, and especially cashmere, because half of them, almost all of them, seem to have holes in them. So if you find a cashmere sweater in great shape, you just need to pick it up, regardless of what time of year it is, because they're hard to find. I'd say another thing you really have to do is decide what you enjoy. I started off listening to everybody's advice. And so what I ended up doing was I tried to sell electronics for a while. Big mistake. You're going to make some mistake like that too, but this was a real big one though, because I immediately got returns like crazy, and it scared me to death. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my eBay account because I'm getting so many returns. And then I just stopped buying electronics because I also never felt completely confident about the testing of it. You know, I would test it, make sure it worked, but I am not a technical person. I am truly a low-tech girl trying to survive in a high-tech world, and it's not pretty. Not at all. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't put myself in a bad position again. My cat is playing with the avocados. If you hear a noise in the background, not good. Anyway, so these are just a few of the things. I wanted to go over some of the hype and just say, know your objectives, know yourself, be willing to go with the ups and downs, because you're going to have good weeks where you think, oh, I'm so glad I did this. And then you're going to have bad weeks where you think about quitting. It's going to happen. It happens to everybody, I think. Anyway, I am going to try to do a video every day for 60 days and see how much I love this. And if I like it as much as I think, I'm going to continue doing it. I think it's very important that someone comes out and discusses some of the things that aren't discussed a lot, and also digs in deeper on certain things that are important. This is for beginners because I'm a 2-year person. I certainly don't see myself as an expert, but I have learned a lot in 2 years, and I think as a fairly new eBay person, I have a lot to share as just kind of coming out of the beginner's phase, and I can still remember very well every mistake I've made and all of the things that I was confused about and why I was confused about them. Anyway, happy holidays. I hope to see you on my next video. Goodbye.